let's get that conversation started with our guest right here in our Lagos studio, as well as those that are joining us via Zoom. Right here in the Lagos studio, we have Mr. Alfred Ononugbo. He's the CEO of Bell Protocol Security and Support Services. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Always my pleasure. Thank you.
We also have in the studio Mr. Karufi Garuba. He's the CEO of App Securities. Mr. Garuba, thank you for coming.
I'm happy to be with you.
And joining us via Zoom is Dr. Victoria Como, the MD, Transworld Security Systems Limited, as well as Group Captain Shehu Sadiq, joining us via Zoom. Gentlemen and a lady, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Como, let's start with you. Let's start with you because they say ladies first. So let's just follow that trajectory. Babajide Ogunsowa has broken down some of the numbers in terms of how security plays out at different parts of the region. I know that there's a data from National Security Tracker from the Council of Foreign Relations that shows that under the previous administration, about 22 persons die every day. So now that we have President Bola Tinubu in the last 1 year, do you think, in your view, Nigerians are safer?
Thank you. I would say to some extent that Nigerians are safer since President Tinubu came in, because when his predecessor, that's President Buhari, was there, was like he was an enabler, so the insecurity just persisted, and even when the culprits were arrested, they were released immediately. So that did not even, when you say crime and punishment, that did not help the situation. But I think with President Bola Tinubu right now, I think things are better, but they are not where they should be. But there's been a lot of mass abductions in the IDP camp in Borno. There's been mass abduction in Kaduna. Even there was a recent one in Niger, So, and then I would bring it home. In Uromi lately, that's in the Edo State, there was even a cry out that the kidnapping is getting worse in Uromi. That is in the south. The IPOB problem, I think to some extent, is minimized. It's not over. So I would say under President Bola Tinubu is better, but it's not where it should be. A lot of work still needs to be done for us to feel safer, for us to sleep with our eyes closed, and for us to be able to travel. I used to love to travel and just enjoy scenery, but now you can't really travel by road.
All right, let's stay virtual. Group Captain Sadiq, maybe your take on this particular question I did ask.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, the record for security across Nigeria is a variegated one. It depends on what you're talking about. Certainly, traditionally, the areas that have had security problems are the Northeast, Northwest, and the North Central. To be honest, it will be difficult to tell somebody in the Northwest, especially in states like Kaduna, Zamfara, and Katsina, that is feeling safer. Certainly, I think the situation is almost the same as it was during President Muhammadu Buhari, or even worse. It will equally not be correct to tell somebody like in Niger State, that the security is better. However, when we go down the Niger in South-South, in Southeast, in the Northwest, in the Southwest, a claim could be made that security has improved. But certainly in this area that I called in Northwestern states, in the North Central state of Niger and even Plateau State. So that's why I said it's a mixed record of achievements if we're talking specifically for the last 12 years. However, if you ask me how do we rate the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration, I think the best this thing is to look at the renewed hope agenda. What did he say he's going to do in security? What has he done? To the typical man on the street, numbers or opinion polls may count for much when we're discussed, but for the man on the street, his measure of security is, are people being kidnapped? Are people being killed? Is he able to go to farm? These are the figures for him that are concrete measures, whether security is going forward or whether we are regressing in terms of security.
Yes, indeed. Group Captain Sheo, you may have already expanded the conversation by telling us that it depends on where you are looking at as far as security is concerned. Speaking of which, in the Northwest and in the North Central, there have been reports that in the last few weeks, there's been pressure by security agents, compelling the terror cells to evacuate. But it seems that they're being pushed to the central. And I'm coming to the studio now. If you consider the report that 150 people were kidnapped in North Central, Mr. Garba, are you concerned that there is a pressure of the influx of security, kidnappers, bandits into Nigeria's North Central, and maybe even further down into the South?
That is very correct. And when you look at the North Central, it has the largest forest. And secondly, that there is no coordination because this is a single forest right from Niger, Katsina, Dampara, Sokot, Kebbi, Kaduna, Niger. Why we only hear that they struck? Where is the infantry military? There should be a coordination that when there is airstrike, there is also soldiers on the ground attacking this, so there is no room to escape. But we are not noticing this. That is why you see, even recently in Katsina, you see just last week, over 35 people were killed from 2 local governments. That is Kankara and Bakuri. And the reason is very obvious. These soldiers, they come through machines. Why can't we even send an aircraft to study their movement? Because there is no way 100 machines with people will move without noticing them. But we don't hear this. So the truth of the matter that even if there is success, we can say there is still little impact to the people on the ground because the 8 front local government, you see they cannot go to the farm. This is the time of rainy season. You cannot go to the farm. And even at home, you are not at peace. And we don't even have recruitment that show that to match with these people. Because where 300 people go to a local government, when last did you hear recruitment by the military, by the police? I believe that with this massive unemployment, if we can deploy more people employed into this security and match face-to-face, honestly speaking, with the Air Force, we will succeed there. But that is not happening. And when we begin to ask, how can the aircraft, how can the airstrike will succeed without the infantry military? It's never done anywhere.
So, Mr. Ononbo, what lessons are we learning in terms of strategy and the need for deployment of infant military, according to Mr. Garba, to further tackle these challenges?
Well, I think my first take is that the services shouldn't be distracted by the traditional political activities of celebrating achievements, landmarks, promises during campaign and all that. The situation we have on ground predates this administration. It wasn't a biscuits and a cup of tea situation. We've had a growing insecurity across the states. And these insecurities were not just driven by political misrepresentations and mismanagements. Some are driven by lack of employment, poverty, growing poverty. And with insecurity, a lot more unemployments were created. People could no longer, like my colleague said, go to the farm. People could not be engaged in meaningful business activities. Some businesses were under severe pressure. And here we are, the politicians who come for 4 years and, of course, within the 4 years, look for another term, want to drag us to the street to say, hey, gentlemen, we are doing so much, we are achieving so much. Well, we will clap for them. The goal of the media campaign for this period will be for us to see that they are good and possibly electable for the next election. But that doesn't address the issues of security and insecurity. In fact, they are most incompetent. What they do is bring the political will to ensure that these things are happening. But the actual players are the security establishments. We should not be swept away with the flood of celebrations. We should be able to look at, yes, people are no longer free to go to farms. Nigerians can no longer grow in any other sector, including our commercial activities. So how do we stem this tide? And that has to do with going back to the drawing table by all the agencies, like you said. Intelligence must be shared. But before you share intelligence, it has to be gathered and analyzed thoroughly, and appropriate information passed to the appropriate quarters. That's one. Two, we need the right technology and equipment to engage. The era of organize some people and you are using walkie-talkie to walk on the road is over. We have unmanned aerial equipment that could pick intelligence, time-bound intelligence, and encourage the systems to plan a response that can give us a result. Now, these must be sustainable. It will take funds. The government, which are the politicians, I call them four-year people, must be willing to provide the kind of resources to give us not just the technology, but the know-how and capability to sustain whatever we are doing that might be working, and to jettison the ones that are not working and learn new ones in order to contain this tide.
Let's take it back to Dr. Komo on this particular one, because when you look at insecurity, you have to look at it from 2 points: violent attacks as well as rate of fatality, which is what data analyst Babajide Ogunsonwo spoke about. So they've been touting the issue of state police. Do you see this as a panacea, some sort of, to bringing down, the level of insecurity witnessed in parts where we call like the hotspot or the hotbed of insecurity?
Thank you for that. With the rate of insecurity in Nigeria, the state police is a welcome change, because at times those at the center, it takes them a while to know what's happening. It's like what the general said just now. He said it depends on where you're coming from. If you are in a state and you have all the wherewithal and you can go ahead and respond fast, then it's faster than waiting to get clearance from an IGP who really doesn't know what's going on, and who the problem is really not close to. So state police is very important. When you look at even the US, they have their state police and they're able to respond and to any security incidents and nip it at the bud. I mean, they also have security problems, but they're able to respond faster. So with the insecurity we have here in Nigeria, I believe state police is, the time for it is now. And we have to embrace it and utilize it to quell the problem, so that the situation will get better, in different states.
All right, Group Captain Sadiq, let's come to you. Maybe you have to talk about state police as well, but in addition to that, we need to look at some of the drivers of insecurity, from economy to politics to all of this. By your experience and what you've seen happen in the last 1 year, are the agencies and the government diagnosing the problem rightly, in your view?
Okay, thank you. First, let me comment following what Madam said on state police. You see, in the debate on state police Nigeria, I think there are two extreme positions that have been taken without thinking of a middle course. The first, when people say state police, the idea is that a police that is 100% controlled, financed, managed by state governments, as opposed to what we have now, which is a police that is centrally controlled, managed, and handled by the federal government. What we forget is that if you look at Nigerian realities, I think neither one, neither other in these two extremes is good for us. But if you are looking at general literature or state on how police systems, apart from centralized police, which is what we have, and the decentralized police, which is run by the subnationals, there is also a middle course of having a semi-decentralized police force. What do I mean by here? Experts have pointed out the fears they have of state governors, having total controls of state police. Now, a demi-centralized police system, combines these two extremes and come to the middle, whereby certain aspects or certain safeguards as to how states run the police will be held by the federal government, whereas you have this. So I think the debate is always missing that link. If you want state police completely controlled by states, there are dangers there. If you have a police controlled completely by the federal government, there are inefficiencies. So I think the debate later will come to coalesce around a middle ground where it is not wholly controlled by the state police and it is not wholly controlled by the federal government. Having said that, you also asked me whether we are looking at this holistically. I have to be very honest. In my opinion, if you look at the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in fact, even going back to the Buhari administration, I think we are not tackling the issue. We talk about security architecture. What do we really mean by security architecture? You are talking of the people in the front, whether Army, Air Force, Navy, Police, DSS. This is only one part of the other structure. The other structure is the oversight bodies. The ministries where these people, where these agencies are allocated, the National Assembly that allocate budget, that should allocate priorities. What I find in my own research, and this is my personal opinion, right at the executive branch and the National Assembly branch, we don't do much of analysis. It's like we allow the services, whether military, whether DSS, to just do what they want from budgeting. I just I attended a conference where Budget IT, this organization that analyzes budget, if they give you the breakdown of the budget, you will wonder the budget does not reflect what is contained in the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu manifesto. When you read the manifesto at the CNC, you hear him talking about recruitment, you hear him about reforming, you hear him about equipping. Like the lady pointed out, what recruitment have we done? We have not done any recruitment to show the consistent acknowledgement by everybody that we are short of security agencies, whether you talk of police, whether you talk of the army. The army is just starting a recruitment for this year since this government came, and how many numbers. In fact, before you even talk about recruitment, there should be an analysis. What is the optimal number of military personnel that Nigeria needs? Looking at all the indices, economic, political, diplomatic, you come at a number, because again, it's a matter of economy. You have to spend money again for health and agri and roads and everything. So it's not everything that looks agriculture. The same thing with police. We have not yet decided, even though we have the UN ratio, but then we may decide our economy can do that or our economy cannot do that. So the debate is, if we've had a multi-year plan, for example, if you understand we have a shortage of 50,000 policemen, when the police are bringing their budget, what I expect the executive to do is to ensure, okay, for this year, how many are you recruiting? You have that number. National Assembly also that passes that. So 2025, we have done 10,000. Remaining how many? This is what we do. But honestly, if you look at the budget of the security agencies, it does not reflect the important areas. I just did a small analysis before you called me now. I saw, like, for the security agencies, about 68% of their budget is on salaries, allowances, and what they call social services.
All right, let's manage our time, Group Captain Shehu. Let's come to the studio now and look at, yet again, the security concern from two levels. The equipment that the armed forces are using to tackle either it's banditry or insurgency. The president signed the DICON bill into law only recently. How has that, further equipped the armed forces to fight? And then also, let's also look at protection for the armed forces while they fight. Reports say that about 965 of them have died in the last 2 years at the battlefield. So I'm coming to you now, Mr. Garba. In view of the concern you had raised earlier about the lack of infantry on the ground, how do you respond to these two issues, equipment that they are fighting with, and then protection for the men at the war front?
Well, I think we fail to face the reality. The reality, all this insubordination, they are people that we know. They are from within the locality. So they are not unknown to us. But the community that we're supposed to recruit all these unemployed youths and equip them and support them with the military, they are not there. You take a local government that has a dimension of 100 kilometers. You just send 20 police. How can they protect that? These people, most of the people they kidnap, they recruit them. And now they become arms with AK-47 and they will come and attack the people, and they are well paid. So the truth of the matter is that we need community people. We have to recruit and equip and back them by the police or military, or let them guide them because they know the terrain. The terrain is not unknown to the community. So we need those, but not state police. Because the truth of the matter that, look at it from the election. All the state electorate, they make sure that the local government election won by the same state political party. That shows that there is no true unfairness. And therefore, it disenfranchises the people from making their choice, so they are not interesting. And the poverty is there. Because where there is poverty, you get people that are recruited for others. The governor of Katsina State that even the village head participated in this. So how do you exonerate those who are contributing to these insurgents? So the truth of the matter that we need community, we need equipment, we need to use the drone.
So regardless of whether we have state police or not, or even superior equipment, if there are no men to man it.
Katsina State recruited 150 for each local government.
All right.
But they couldn't help.
All right, Mr. Tinubu.
Well, we are Nigerians. You can't get Ghanaians to pay the price to set or keep us safe. So we should be able to look inwards. Secondly, we should be able to review the kind of welfare that are given to our men and officers. Some of them are poorly paid. These terrorists pay far better. They provide superior equipment. Motivation is everything. People can sacrifice when they see a cause to die for. And I think we should also take time to give our people a national reorientation that makes the Nigerian citizen superior to other public officers. So when you are serving the Nigerians and not the other way around. A situation where we don't have that kind of synergy between the political class and the masses. The only meeting point we have are during elections. That is very suicidal because when they are disenfranchised, like he said, and a lot of agitations come up, people take laws into their hands and they engage in all manner of sabotage, all kinds of things to make sure that they get even. And we create more insecure society and everybody pays for it, including the politicians who use over 40 to 60% of our security forces to protect themselves and their families, leaving the rest of us to fend for ourselves. So it's a big problem.
At the end of the day, it's a lot to talk about, but just a quick one, just to wrap up. Let me start from the studio this time. A quick assessment of the last 1 year by percentage. So let's talk about efforts and results. Let me start with you, Mr. Garba.
Well, when you look at
average, above average, below average?
It depends. Honestly speaking, I'm from Katsina State. If you go to the front local government, they will tell you there wasn't any much improvement. But if you look at the Northeast, you will see that there is serious improvement. Most of the people have now vacated and go back to their local government. So the issue is that we just address one side, we leave the other side. And now gradually they are moving from northwest to north central. And there is synergy because it's the same forest. So for me, the government have to squarely address it collectively, not addressing a state by state. The affair must be across the border. Otherwise, we'll just solve one problem and create another problem.
All right, let me come to you, Dr. Okomo, on this particular one. When we look at the budget that I've been seeing, the defense budget has been quite big, perhaps one of the biggest in the last successive years, over 2 trillion in the 2024 budget. The president has given us a hint that he will be extending the spending limit this year with the supplementary budget being sent to the National Assembly. We heard him say that today when he visited the joint session of the National Assembly. When you look at the amount being spent, Dr. Okomo, does it justify the effort or the results we're seeing?
Thank you for that. I don't agree that the amount being spent justifies the effort. And I will use Niger State as an example. Recently, was that last week or so, Niger State had a major kidnap situation where about 200 or so were kidnapped. from their different houses, and it was said that they moved from house to house in downpour. The rain was falling, and for 3 hours, and people were running into the bushes, and there was no help, no backup, no security backup to assist them. Even the vigilantes that were there, I think about 4 of them were killed. There was no help to save these people for 3 good hours. One would expect that if the money is being spent well, we should have more reinforcement. When there's a problem like that, since it went on for 3 hours, there should have been reinforcement to at least intervene and stop the atrocity that was being committed. But there was no response. It was the next day, I think on Saturday, that there was response. So they can pander a lot of amounts being spent, but it has to be effective to quell the situation. So I just use that as an example. Although I know that that of Kaduna, the students were able to get the one. I think it was first said that it was about 200 and something students that were, and students and teachers and that were kidnapped. But later, I think they came down to about 130 something people that were rescued, and they said they had all the people rescued, which was a plus for the government to have rescued all of them unharmed. But that of Niger that just happened a few days ago, that's a little bit worrisome for me. So I don't think they have enough. We should have drones. If they really are spending the money well, they should have drones to monitor the place so that when there's any, they said that they came with about 300 bandits that came in there, and they came in motorcycles, about over 100 motorcycles, and nobody saw these people and stopped them. So there should be drones, and when there's any problem going on, there should be immediate response. But there wasn't any response, no backup. So to me, it doesn't speak too well about how the amounts are being spent, though there's a lot that was allotted to security.
So in the same breath, Group Captain Shehu, let's tie this to security, particularly because of what is being spent. And, the concern raised even by the CDS himself only a few months ago during the budget defense and in revelations to us pressmen, that his men are paid less than 50,000 naira, and their allowances per day is 1,500 naira for feeding, including himself. So the question is, you have the knowledge of how things are done in the military, having served. Do we need to wait a bit more, for the disbursement of budgetary spending to see improvement in the welfare of the armed forces as they continue in their fight against insecurity, or things will remain the same?
Yes, okay, thank you. Permit me to also say with Mrs. Ekomu that sometimes it's not actually insecurity. It is not the total amount that is very important. It is good when you spend big, but how you spend it, where you put emphasis, that is where the problem is. The CDS spoke about welfare. In the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu manifesto, there is increase in welfare and salary is one of the points there. But if you think that is important, then you should put the money there. However, when I say look at our budget for security anytime and see where we are putting the money. The money is big in terms of, in fact, this year, I made a rough calculation. The money for security is higher than the money for education and health combined, which is not bad. However, we need to see it trickling down. I think there is not much attention paid by the executive branch and the legislative branch on where emphasis is paid. The executive, when, the budgeting process is that the security services will present this what we want to do. But it goes through the executive. If your emphasis is on equipment, you can say, okay, you have put too much money here, I'm moving it, I'm putting it here. There's something with the National Assembly. But in my opinion, I think that is not being done. Whatever the security agencies pass, that is just what is given to them. So like I said, if you even carry 80% of the budget and put it in security, if you don't follow the money, if you don't ensure that it is areas where the security is watching that you put the money will be frittered away in ceremonies, in frivolous, in frivolous projects, which add nothing to the capacity of the security forces. So I think both the executive branch and the National Assembly must do more about how they budget, about how the money goes and where it is put. If not, even if you put 100% of the money in security, people will find a way of spending it, but it has nothing to do with the quick response that Madam Ekomu talked about. It has nothing to do with the recruitment of personnel. It will go into other things.
Let me come to you, Mr. Ononugbo, on this particular one. I'm looking at the Renewed Hope agenda, and I think there are some things you call low-hanging fruits. We've talked about personnel number, as Mr. Garba has said, but the president had promised that they will transfer the responsibility of protecting VIPs and government installations and buildings to the NSCDC, empower them a little more, and then free them from VIP protection. We haven't seen that. There's also the anti-terrorist battalion that was supposed to be formed, like our own SEAL team. We haven't seen that. From what you know, what could be stopping some of the things that lay people will consider this is a no-brainer, should have been done since?
Well, the first question I will ask is if our security apparatus and our politicians are doing the right thing, why do they require special protection? We live together in the same place. During elections, we sleep together. They eat akara on the streets. They carry little babies around and nobody harm them. And suddenly after winning election, we are investing so much to have special units protecting VIPs. That's absurd. Something is just not right somewhere. And I think that's what we're not addressing. What are the actual problems? Because if we have a safe and secure society, if our men and our security men are well equipped, well motivated, and made to do their natural, traditional role, play their traditional roles, we will not have special situations where few individuals, less than 5% of the entire population, are given 80% concentrated protection just to keep them safe. One person who was voted by the masses, moves around with over 15, 20 convoys of armed security guards. And the police posts, we have barely 4, 5, 10 people running, which covers over 200 to 5,000 people in the community. Something is not right. So I would advise and I would think that if Mr. President wants to help us, let's look at why we're having this problem. People don't have jobs. Our industries have failed. Places are not functioning because we're talking about security. Security starts from home. People can't go to school. Those who went to school cannot find jobs. They're ending up inventing antisocial interests that are hurting the entire society and becoming cheap recruits by bandits and other criminal interests. So when we begin to feed some of these challenges, we begin to eliminate those platforms that are giving them, kind of a realization that, whoa, they have found somewhere they're making money. Now, back to the issue of the political class, because I have always seen the role of the politicians as aggravating the security problem we have in our country. Their lifestyles, their behavior, their poor management of the resources of the nation. It's not what they say on television. All these branded activities are just showcased to prepare us to vote for them next time. They are not interested in making sure that the police, it's as bad as policemen use their money to buy these papers they use to collect statements from criminals. Policemen buy their own uniforms. Now they come and present big budgets. For the past 40 years, I've had budgets and budgets for police, and I see the quality of the lives of the policeman, the military man, the custom of it's poorer. They are more miserable. Go to their hospitals. You'll be fortunate to come out alive. These are people who are spending their lives to save the entire nation. A policeman cannot put his child or a soldier in a good school for education. Today, education is unaffordable. So these are things. By the time we put these things, and welfare is not just about giving them 1,000 naira a day. For a man fighting with his life, we are coming to the public to tell them we're giving them 1,000. When they go for United Nations operations, they are paid far higher and better. And they go there and perform excellently well and return successfully.
Let me come to you, Mr. Garuba, on this one, because there's a concerning development from the conversation we have here, which has to do with the number of people whose boots are on the ground as far as our military is concerned. But we've also seen that even the military is getting into embarrassing situations where military is being used to settle very embarrassing civil dispute and altercation. Look at the issues of Banax. There was another issue in the same Abuja. Taylor had an issue with someone and a military person. All of this that we talk about. How, because looking forward now, let's look ahead. How can we reposition the military to be really professional and make them a rare sight within the civil community?
Well, you see, there is so many wrong in the nation. First, address judiciary. If there is law, you don't need the police, you don't need the military, because the law will work and make sure law respects nobody. So the judiciary, they are not working. And that is why people take the law into their hands. And this is common. Secondly, the grassroots. Everybody knows the grassroots are the local government. Let's have a true and fair election, not by state, but by ANEC, so that the right people be elected there, and they are willing to ready to spend for their local people, and they are willing to ready to protect themselves. But this state election where they win everything is never going to help us. Then thirdly, we need to use also give and take. As you are striking, at the same time, those who are willing to hands up, you are willing to take them. Because there is no war that succeeded with war alone without also taking the other side of it. So those who are willing to voluntarily to decide to be abandoned from the bush, try to re-acclimatize, collect them, accept them, and see how you can gather the information. Then we use the drone. Why are we not using the drone? All these people are moving, no drone. Nowhere you hear the drone have seen any. Even if they have seen it, they refuse to use it. So we must use technology, and we must employ this team of youth to tap all the telephone of those areas, so that whoever communicates with this bandit are identified and hold on. Because nobody should be above the law. And those people, they are getting information from insider, and we need somebody to tap their information. Why can't we employ youth? Honestly speaking, there is so many things that is going wrong, and unless we put them in the right perspective, we may continue with this war. Because now it's over 19 years, 25 years of democracy, 20 years we have insecurity.
Indeed, it's an inexhaustible conversation, and you're taking us to another area. That is the deployment of technology to fight insecurity. But really, let me come to you now, Dr. Victoria Ekomo. Yes, there's something we do. We assess the administration in terms of result, effort, and result. So we'd like you to assess the administration so far. What are your thoughts on the percentage that you would allot in terms of result and effort?
I will say that the administration, they are trying, but I don't think they are there yet. Because with, I know that the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the leader of APC, so it's like a continuation since he's the president now. With what has been happening, and even with what he promised during the inaugural speech, by now, we should go after the bandits in the forest and start getting them out of the forest using drones and then using military. Because right now, many of these bandits are moving from Kaduna.
So very quickly now, rate the administration. Is it below average, average, or above average in the area of security?
I would say below average.
All right. So, Group Captain Shehu, what are your thoughts? How do you rate the administration?
In the administration, I simply look at the renewed hope agenda of what the government said it will do. And at this time, with 1 year, that is 1/4 of the time gone, I would give it 45%.
All right, fair enough. Group Captain Shehu, thank you so much for your thoughts there. And at this point, we'll like to toss to our colleagues in Abuja for a more in-depth
but we must first thank
analysis from their guests.
We must first thank all of them. Dr. Victoria Ekomo, MD Trans World Security Systems Limited, Thank you so much, man, for joining us on the program. Alfred, you didn't tell us your rating. Quickly, sir. 10 seconds.
Well, below average, definitely.
Below average, okay. CEO, Bell Protocol Security Services, as well as Group Captain Shehu Sadiq. Okay, we've said that. Mr. Karifi Garuba, the CEO of App Security. Thank you so much, gentlemen and lady, for coming on the program. We appreciate you.
Thank you.